I think if you was to ask 9 out of 10 blokes in the street in UK what you thought of the Borneo situation and everything, I bet 9 out of 10 of them wouldn't even come up with an answer about it.
The newspapers slant the news, obviously, they always have done, and they've got this kind of mixed-up picture of bare-breasted maidens around every tree, giving you the old love signs and things.
You think when you're like in a place like UK that jungle is jungle and you can walk just the same as you can walk down the high street. That's impossible, absolutely. I mean, the town centre near where I live is approximately a mile and I can walk it in a quarter of an hour. Whereas, I mean, here you can't get more than, what, 250 yards, 200 yards? And that's the big shattering blow that comes. You just can't walk through the jungle like you can walk down the high street.
Somewhere down there, a jungle patrol has signalled to base that it's almost out of food. The balloon, released by the men below, gives their exact position to the helicopter, which has flown out to resupply them. Food for 12 men for another 4 days. The patrol has made its way to that position in order to build a small fort, out of which they and others can make further patrols along the Indonesian border. By the time they've finished that food, they'll have cut a clearing big enough to land a helicopter. Meanwhile, the helicopter goes on to complete its mission, the resupply of an existing fort.
Because we couldn't work without helicopter pilots as it is. You get a sort of confidence by knowing that they're always there and they're willing to help us, and they won't say, oh, regulation so-and-so says I can't do it. They come in and they're told, bad weather says, technically you can't take any mail into that location because the weather's bad, but they come in hugging the deck, right underneath the weather, zooms round, screeches to a halt and lands on about a 10-foot pad, drops a mail, smiles and nips off again.
They'll do everything they can to help him. There's no doubt about it. The majority of them do that. The majority of them are really sterling blokes and chaps who I'd buy 6 pints a night if I met in the pub. It's a pleasure to know them.
The men in this fort are Royal Marines. They're 40 or 50 miles from the nearest road or track and are entirely dependent on the helicopters for food, ammunition, clothing, mail, even fresh eggs.
Knox, John Knox.
Marine Giles.
There's the old post office thing saying someone somewhere wants a letter from you. Well, some of the lads out here say they've been here for 2 years, say, and they get a letter once every 3 months. So it means a lot.
Marine Row.
I think I hold the record at the moment because I've been writing to this girl, writing to her for 17 months. I was due to go home in 3 weeks' time, and I got a Dear John. In other words, well, I'm sorry that's your lot, mate. I've gone off with somebody else.
Courage.
It means a hell of a lot to get a letter from someone. You can sit down and practically read it off by heart. And you can't really say what it means unless you've actually done it yourself.
Went down again, 6-1. Spurs are well down, aren't they, this year?
Who's top of the league then?
Chelsea at the moment. 17 points, they're 3 points clear. Cheltenham lost.
Oh, Liverpool won in the rugby for change. Oh, they do for change in rugby.
Beside the soldiers who live here, there are two Ibans, local Borneo people renowned for their skill in the jungle as trackers.
Boy.
Iban. Bilang Iban.
What Iban?
Budak duduk.
Buddha Ladu.
Duduk.
Buddha.
Jalai.
Jalai.
Jalai mentukar.
Jalai Tumka.
Mentukar.
Yeah. Road.
Road.
Yeah.
Jalan.
Scotland, that.
Yeah.
Tiger. You know? No, Bearer by Tiger. Up place Scotland.
This fort, about the size of a tennis court, is the home of 25 men. Each man builds his own rough bivouac, or grot, as they call them. The building materials are ground sheets, logs, old ration boxes and string. A good one is rainproof, and it rains almost every night. Apart from the twice-weekly helicopter, the only contact with the rest of the world is through the signaller.
In the United States, a heavy fall was reported in the presidential election. President Johnson has won the seat. The House of Commons is now engaging in the Queen's speech, in which the government sets their proposal for the presentation of new Parliament, which opens today.
The commonest complaint, foot rot, caused by wearing wet jungle boots on patrol for days on end. This fort, and others like it, is very close to the Indonesian border. If the Indonesians do attack, it will be in some strength.
See, all this cover is a great idea, but once it gets wet, it's not much cop because it gets...
Day and night, sentries are watching the surrounding jungle for an attack. It may never come, but if it does, it could be with less than 10 seconds warning. Most of the men here are either resting after their last patrol or preparing for their next one. The fort is their base.
What he's going to do with this? I've given him some tablets, dropped 2 of them into a bowl or a bucket.
The task of these patrols is always the same, to seek out the IBT, the Indonesian border terrorist.
Just soak your feet for about 10 minutes. And that will do. Just to shoot. Have you got any acroflavin tablets? In your bag? Well, I'll have a look. If you have, get a piece of, cut a strip off a piece of bandage. Dilute the acroflavin tablets in water.
The patrol, usually 12 men, leaves its hilltop base. It may be away for 2 days or 2 weeks. British troops have been fighting in the jungles of Southeast Asia for 15 years. First in Malaya, now in the so-called Indonesian Confrontation. Indonesia's object is to overthrow the newly independent nation of Malaysia. She's using the classic methods of border infiltration and then subversion beyond. Indonesia has the 3rd largest communist party in the world. Once British troops are committed, their support involves a good deal more than the odd helicopter dropping rations. Britain has had to honour her treaty with Malaysia with most of the sophisticated and expensive machinery of modern warfare. Indonesia has a fleet of Russian-built ships and squadrons of American and British-built aircraft. She hasn't used them yet, but the fact that she has them means we must have jets and anti-aircraft guns, helicopters and artillery, armoured cars and radar.
To 1 round battery fire. Fire!
Our lines of supply and communication are 8,000 miles long. They end here in Borneo. They begin on the other side of the world. The Australians, too, have come north to watch the coast and the intentions of Indonesia. We are committed to fighting a purely defensive campaign. To the frustration of many of the troops, we operate only on our side of the border. Much of the initiative must therefore be with the Indonesians. This film was made at the northern end of a border which stretches for 1,000 jungle miles. This region of swamp, jungle and rivers is manned by men of 40 Commando, Royal Marines, and 79 Battery, Royal Artillery. Every 5 or 6 weeks, the particular company manning the forward border positions is relieved by another company. In making himself comfortable, the British soldier has a reputation as a scrounger second to none. But in the jungle, there isn't much to scrounge, so he has to make do with what he's got.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave these butterfly stitches on, Simon.
The dog is not a pet. He's used on patrols as a tracker.
Stop bleeding quick, Shannon. Tell young and stop the old first field.
In this particular fort, some of the men have gone down with an unexplained fever. Temperatures go up to 104.
Well, nobody actually knows what causes this fever. This is the reason for taking this blood. The only thing we can do is send samples for testing. If we can find out what causes the fever, then of course you can find an answer, the treatment for it.
The first maxim of any anti-terrorist campaign is to win and hold the friendship of the local people. Out here, that usually means losing to them at football.
If you get the kids on your side, you definitely achieve something. Because if you've got them with you, they get used to you. And once they know that they've no need to be frightened of you, I think you've achieved something. If you can sort of win them over and let them realise that you're here to help them and not frighten them, I think that they get used to you, and they're a lot of fun, really. They definitely know whose side they're on and whose side they don't want to be on. Really, it's a battle in itself with the civilians, I think. I think it's a battle in itself. And as far as the Indonesians are concerned, well, I mean, I don't honestly know how they feel about it, but they seem to show to us that they'd much prefer to have us here than they would the Indonesians.
20 miles forward of the medicine and football, the other side of the war is a silent business of watching the Indonesian bank of a river from a secret observation post. Somewhere on the other side are rumoured to be at least 500 well-armed troops.
Well, they're building up to something. I think that's what it looks like. It's been so quiet for the last couple of months. And there's definitely something going on with shots in the night, trees being chopped down, etc.
One can watch the enemy across a river, but the only way one can find him, if he secretly crosses a jungle border, is to go and look for him, to patrol. No one can move through the jungle without leaving tracks. It's the particular job of the patrol's 2 leading scouts to search for these tracks. But obviously the unarmed cameraman was not allowed to travel with them at the head of the patrol. The patrol moves slowly, each man keeping at least 10 yards behind the man in front, The greatest and constant danger is ambush. The Indonesians know that patrols are looking for them. They could be lying in wait.
All the time I'm thinking about if we get ambushed, what will we do? Will we go left? Will we go right? That's a good ambush position up there. I'll have to watch that as I'm going along. And my mind's ticking over all the time exactly what we would do. If we were attacked, exactly what we would do what. On a 3-day patrol, it really, my mind's never still, really.
This business of tension on patrolling builds up because of the closeness and the denseness of the jungle, which you feel is all round you. Visibility is very seldom more than about 10 or 20 yards in the jungle. And the very thought that there may be a chap hiding round the corner, round any tree, round any piece of undergrowth, or 10 chaps, or 20 chaps, or 30 chaps, who can pour down lead at a terrific rate into you at no warning at all, contributes a lot to the wearying of patrols. I'm sure you get very tired through this constant feeling of the closeness all the time.
The trouble is that many places around here you can hide. I mean, you can hide anywhere around here. You could go past them, never see them, and notice them. There you go.
Every hour or so, the patrol leader signals a 10-minute break. In the course of an hour, the patrol can travel, if the going is not too bad, maybe half a mile. And a man can lose a pint of sweat. Sentries are always on guard. This is the time for getting rid of leeches. A cigarette is best. One should never try to pull a leech off, for its head will break away and stay embedded in the skin, and it will inevitably fester. A leech secretes a fluid which prevents blood from clotting, so the sore goes on oozing for hours.
On a 3-day patrol, you've got 3 of those small 24-hour ration packs. Not much weight in them, but after you've been carrying them quite a while, they seem to get heavier. So we always travel as light as possible.
All you really need is your food, your dry clothing for a night, and your ground sheet to either cover over you or put on the deck to keep the wet out then. I mean, you don't need any excess gear. You can take a tin of foot powder, something like that, you know, but they're all more or less luxuries. Water, I always carry 2 full water bottles, whether it's a short patrol or a long patrol. You never know when you're going to get caught out.
The jungle boot will last, if you're lucky, 2 days or 3 days on patrol. It doesn't drain, and this keeps your feet wet. You're walking in a puddle of water the whole time, your feet go rotten. It seems such a basic element of kit for going into the jungle. But we've been operating in the jungle for many, many years now, and one would have thought that a decent jungle boot would have come out of all this.
By the end of the day, the patrol has moved at the most 5 miles. The map shows that there is water in the area, but maps of these parts don't have too much relation to fact. The patrol will have to make do with what is left in its water bottles, for by now it's 4 o'clock and a camp must be made. This allows 2 hours for everyone to cook a meal and put up a bivvy. It will be dark by 6, and the night lasts 12 hours. there are always sentries. The patrol corporal arranges everyone for their watches during the night. Everyone will be up at least twice, for 1.5 hours at a time. In the dusk, the jungle crickets, thousands of them, are almost deafening. The signaller gets his aerial as high as possible.
Mike Victor, 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 Mike Victor. This is 1-1 Alpha, over.
The cookers run on tablets of solid fuel. The meal is usually a composite one-course affair of rice, stew, raisins, peas, jam and tea. The tea is served separately.
Proceeding to Point Charlie. Proceeding to Point...
See, we generally carry a spare set of dry clothing and dry socks, so at night we can strip the wet stuff off. You just hang it up where we like. Build your bivvy as waterproof as possible and off the ground if possible, because it rain you're going to get wet if you're on the deck anyway. And put your dry stuff on to sleep on, and in the morning, first thing you just put your wet stuff back on again. That's the sort of uncomfortable part of the lot, I think, putting the wet stuff on in the morning.
Dusk has always been a time for sneak attacks. The enemy can withdraw under cover of darkness. On every patrol and at all the forts along the border, everyone stands guard with loaded weapons. For the next 12 hours there'll be no lights and no talking, just sleep and guards.
I think the real danger lies at night. The Indonesians don't like attacking by day. Even at night time, when they do attack, they nearly always attack between 10 o'clock at night and, say, 2 o'clock in the morning. They never really attack when they're an awful long way from the border, because as soon as they attack at night, they like to get away. They usually attack on a moonlit night as well. They attack, they come in, fire a quick burst of shot, and they then open a quick engagement, usually beaten off, and back over the border they go as quickly as their little legs will carry them. That is really what in my own mind, really the real danger of it. Somebody creeping up on you at night. I certainly wouldn't like it. I certainly wouldn't like it.
As soon as there is any light at all, the patrol packs up and moves off to find water. In the gloom of a small valley, they find their water. The leader signals for the machine gunner to take guard while the patrol fills its water bottles and cooks a meal. First, the water must be filtered through a canvas bag. Then 2 sterilizing tablets must be put into each water bottle. Half an hour must be allowed for the chemical to take effect. Then another kind of pill must be put in to kill the taste of the first 2. Then one can drink the water. As soon as the morning mist has lifted out of the jungle, the helicopters are on their way to resupply the forts. This is that clearing into which food was dropped 4 days ago. The men have now cut a bigger clearing. Here they're establishing another fort, out of which they'll patrol along a part of the border previously uncovered. Besides wire, nails, saws, ammunition and food, the helicopter has brought in an officer to discuss the future plans for this new patrol base. He has 10 minutes before the helicopter flies back to talk to the patrol leader.
This river is the most, Sulak is the most extraordinary river. It's hidden completely. I was 20 yards away from it the other day and I never saw it. And we are exactly there.
So we're right on Donut?
Yeah, we're right on Donut now, sir.
Good. Is there any sign of movement at all along this track?
No, there isn't. There the other night at about 2:30 in the morning, there were a succession of shots. It was, no, the night before last, 2:30. Succession of shots.
This was Sunday night?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was from the west. In fact, we were then just here. It was here, somewhere between the Sulak.
Yeah.
Now, I think it wasn't any of our people. I'm pretty sure it was...
a hunting party? Yes.
The British soldier sometimes complains about his job, but then he always has. And anyway, when pressed, he'll agree that he's doing what he's paid and trained to do. It's just that he doesn't care to be taken completely for granted.
There is one or two people in UK that know the actual political situation, but there's not many other than relatives of the actual people that's out here that know exactly what the British forces are doing out here. At least I don't think there is anyway.
I don't think anybody now in their right minds in this day and age wants a war. I think the present situation is stalemate, with possibly the initiative on the Indonesian side, because politically we can't come to grips with them until they come over here to meet us. That is, I think, is the only bad thing about it. But at the same time, it's a happier situation at the moment than it would be if the whole thing was to burst out and we start a war, and then it would become involved.
We're here to prevent the Indonesians from taking over a part of the country which doesn't wish to become part of Indonesia. The fact that the job happens to be boring, tedious, and we'd perhaps rather be with our families in Singapore is immaterial. We're soldiers doing a job, and this is the job for which we're trained.